on the plane now, getting ready to go to Havana, Cuba. We have this entire charter flight full of people and, as important, full of medicines. And we're so excited to be with the Cuban people and show our support, show our solidarity, and to say that this cruel, inhumane, barbaric policy of the Trump administration has to go.
What is it with Democrats and caring about foreigners more than Americans? How about you go to LA and tell Gavin Newsom about his inhumane, homeless policies? Venezuela was in the same situation as Cuba, and Trump pretty much freed Venezuela, and you guys were against it, but now you're against him freeing Cuba? Make that make sense. Going to Cuba to tell them that they shouldn't be free is like me going up to a homeless person saying, no, you don't want money, you don't want to have a house like me. How are you going to tell them what's best for them? They are happy that Trump's about to destroy the Cuba regime, and they're actually talking with Trump and Marco Rubio right now, and they're going to cave probably, and they're going to become a Democrat capitalist society. You act like Cuba hasn't been like this for the last 60 years and that Trump is the president, so all of a sudden Cuba's like terrible.
What the heck is Ilhan Omar's daughter doing in Cuba? So she is a part of a group that is called Nuestra America Convoy to Cuba. And of course, they blame Donald Trump for the reason that Cuba is struggling and not the fact that they have been under a communist regime for more than 60 years. So they have created this organization called Code Pink, where 140 people across the United States are going to Cuba, and they claim that they're bringing 20 tons of medical aid and humanitarian supplies. But the truth is these groups are actually partying it up in luxurious hotels and basically using all of the electricity while the rest of Cuba suffers. There are hospitals that don't have electricity, and people are losing their lives while these communists go to Cuba to try to help them because of how communism has destroyed them. And what they're actually doing is just partying. So check it out. So it really looks like they are just having a wonderful time, you know, actually partying, listening to music as if life is just great. Meanwhile, people are struggling to have food, and this is illegal. According to travel.state.gov, it says that travel to Cuba for tourists remains prohibited by U.S. statute. So they shouldn't even be there. Typical beach vacations or tourist activities are illegal. So what the actual heck? You're only supposed to go to Cuba if it's a journalistic activity. I don't think that includes taking buses around, you know, and just all these photo ops. Somebody says that that's sad. People are losing their lives, so snobby Americans can go party. And just ignore the reality of what is happening in Cuba. People don't have electricity, but for some reason, their hotels do. This post says, a friend in Cuba just notified me that every single patient in that hospital that was on ventilators died tonight. I don't have words. But yet, there's pictures of these people's hotel, a very fancy hotel, and they have electricity. Hassan Piker is streaming, but people are making fun of him because his stream gets cut out.
Every Friday, you already know what we do out here. It's Friday then. Rain or shine, baby.
Cuba is not holding back. Ilhan Omar's daughter just touched down, and now some locals are speaking out hard. They're calling it tone deaf, they're calling it propaganda, and now this trip is going viral for all the wrong reasons. Here's what happened. Isra Hirsi joined a US activist convoy traveling to Cuba, saying it's about solidarity and support. But critics, including some Cuban voices, are pushing back, saying we're struggling and foreigners are turning this into a political showcase. Some reports even claim activists stayed in high-end hotels, and that's where the backlash exploded. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're new here, this is a safe space for real conversations about real situations. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you never miss a video. Video credit goes to the original creators for every video used in this episode. Let's get into the video and I'll be right back with more commentaries.
Leftists and communists that are from America, are very spoiled here, went to Cuba and were brought there by the communist dictator and the whole Cuban government without going to see outside of these hotels and five-star areas. Yeah, so this story takes a huge turn because not only are Cubans turning on them and calling them out for this, but first, we got to talk about Ilhan Omar's daughter. Why was she there? And she leaked where she was at, and it looked like she was at a very good spot. She was taking selfies there. And what's crazy about this is Ilhan Omar's daughter, she's facing backlash for the revolutionary tour. She's supposed to be some type of revolutionary that grew up in the United States of America and lives a fantastic life, right? And her name is Isra Hirsi, daughter of Representative Ilhan Omar, factually visited Cuba recently, meeting with high-ranking officials of the communist regime. During her visit, Hirsi shared photos and videos factually praising Cuba's social systems, which critics, argue in an objective endorsement.
You guys, I want to say something to the people. I want to speak on the people that went to Cuba this past weekend. I had never heard of Code Pink before until just recently. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're communists, they're socialists, ¿sabes qué? They're a bunch of descarados, okay? Because in my delusional mind, in my head, I was like, oh, okay, all these people are going to go to Cuba and they're going to have so much food and they're going to take so much medicine. And then my Cuban people is going to line up and they're going to have boxes set up for them. There's going to be in these boxes beans and rice and medicine, diapers. Tú sabes, I thought that was going to happen. I don't even know why they thought that was going to happen, right? But what happened? It was the complete opposite. Qué descarado. They showed up at the airport clapping and then they go partying it up. Look at this. Well, the Cuban people in Cuba was without electricity. Who do you think provided electricity for them to party it up? And what's even worse, you guys, at the end of the night, these people were able to go back to the hotel that had electricity. Everything was in darkness. They were able to go back to their air conditioning, eat food, and have cold water and all that. Cuba people went to sleep without food, without nothing. Qué descarado. And then this, we're going to paint a mural. You know what's going to happen when the Cuban people walk through that mural? This is exactly, mira esto, come mierda. That's exactly what it's happening, okay? We didn't see any of them handing out. You know what? It was all propaganda. It was all a show that the government was involved. How sad. How sad. You guys changed nothing. Made it even worse. I'm going to play an audio for you guys because I said, sobrino, what did these people pass out? I want you guys to hear what he said.
De frío para los mayores. Un paquete de galletitas, eso, María, eso. Y para los viejos creo que, no sé si le dieron un paquete de leche. No, no, a los viejos no le dieron nada, ni me recuerdo. Frijoles también para los viejos. O sea, te estoy hablando de que no sé dónde están las cosas.
Little Mexican things. Where was the medicine? Where all those food and medicine that you brought? Where do you think it's going? Qué descarado, how sad. You changed nothing because you didn't talk to any of the Cuban people. They didn't take you to the Ria. It's so sad. Y qué descarado, and shame on them. And I said what I said.
Why are the children of our sitting members of Congress actively going out on propaganda tours for adversarial nations? Why are they being flown to Cuba on the dime of the Castro family? And why aren't we more outraged about it? Isra Hirsi is currently living it up in Cuba right now alongside the works of other leftist scumbags such as Hassan Piker. Who is Isra, you might ask? Well, her mother is Ilhan Omar, a sitting member of Congress, and yet her daughter is kikiing it up with the enemy. That is dangerous. That sets a very dangerous precedent. That sets a very dangerous narrative. And she is weaponizing her being there in order to try to attempt to prevent Trump from taking forward action against them. And I pray to God it doesn't work because this is disgusting. Right now, what we're witnessing is champagne socialism on full display. They are partying in one of the most expensive hotels in Cuba, while the average Cuban can't even afford to eat. Right now, there is no electricity over there, except for, you guessed it, in that hotel because electricity is a luxury in socialist countries. It is not something that is promised to you. And people like Hassan Piker are trying to downplay it, saying that they prefer it that way. The people of Cuba don't actually want electricity because, it's just a slower style of living. It's just island living. It has nothing to do with their oppressive government that doesn't actually care about them. It doesn't have to do with the fact that socialism has quite literally never worked, and it usually leads everyone to poverty, except, of course, the ruling oligarchs that you think it's fun to go party with. It's absolutely disgusting. It's scary that this is currently happening, and it needs to be looked into, because if that's the case, Ilhan Omar herself is a security risk to this country, but that's something we already know.
Not having any bandwidth whatsoever, I have no idea what's going on. Like last night, we ended the broadcast, and I went and linked up with the Progressive International boys. I met Jeremy Corbyn. That was fantastic. And I hung out with the Kneecap boys. We went out and drank at like a local establishment, and we have been we've just been living La Vida Loca. Honestly, we've just been living life, living large, and just peppering people with just wads of cash for the most part, with hopes that there's like a little bit of economic respite for each individual Cuban that we encounter.
No, she wasn't kicked out. Was she? But the reaction is quite loud. Now the internet is divided. Is this real activism or performative politics? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. If you value conversations that go deeper than headlines, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on your notifications so you never miss a video. This channel exists because of you, and conversations like this matter because you engage. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and most importantly, stay active in the dialogue. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.